We hope from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept you well in His afiyah and His khair. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us in this world in khair and afiyah, in the company of the righteous. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raise us amongst the righteous on the day of Qiyamah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fill our lives with mercy and rahmah, as all of us are in the need of the rahmah and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're just going to quickly share this stream on our own pages, inshallah. If any of the brothers or sisters would like to share, please make sure that you do this now, inshallah, as inshallah many brothers and sisters may be able to benefit from this. Okay. Mutsab, how are you? How's everything?
Alhamdulillah, everything is good.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and reward you for being with us, inshallah, tonight. This is an opportunity that we get, alhamdulillah, and our brothers and sisters with their questions and concerns that they have about their deen and their faith are able to, alhamdulillah, get an opinion and speak to the scholars and, alhamdulillah, get to know them and get to learn from them. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti Abdullah Sahab. Thank you for joining us. Because of the lack of time, we're just going to jump directly to the questions. Mufti Umar Sahab, a question that usually arises and comes a lot here is the question of leasing, and especially car leasing. Alhamdulillah, you have so much expertise where multiple organizations in countries such as Pakistan, and you are dealing with them and their institutions, and they are banks which have changed their documentation to really fit the criteria of the need of the Muslims and make sure that it's Sharia compliant, and how like the Islamic way of ijara is happening. Would you be able to shed some light upon the lease agreement, or what sort of clause were placed inside the lease agreement in Pakistan that we were discussing previously, that our brothers and sisters can know and how it really functions, inshallah.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. As far as leasing agreement or car leasing from conventional banks is concerned, so it has been discussed by the Sharia standard of IUF, because IUF has issued a complete Sharia standard for car ijara. So there are some issues with conventional banking's leasing agreement, because in leasing, for example, if you take a house or car from someone on leasing, so it is the property of that lessor, and the responsibility of the property or car is on the owner. So the any loss occurs with that product should be on the owner. But in car leasing, it is not in this way. But the lessee is one who has to bear all these losses. This is the first thing. Secondly, in leasing, the rent or installment, which is actually a rent, it can be imposed on lessee only when he is using the product and he is getting the usufruct of that product or property, for example. But in conventional leasing, he has to pay on time, even though he did not get that property and he's not using. So this is the second issue. And thirdly, if he has taken the owner the position of that property or product, but if it does not work, for example, due to any reason, he is not responsible to pay the rent. But in conventional leasing, he has to pay. So these are the issues with conventional leasing. That's why it is not allowed if you or anyone gets it from conventional banking. Yes,
so looking at the larger, I'm sorry, so looking at the larger picture of ijara, which is to lease something from someone to use, in larger aspect, ijara may be acceptable, but with restricted or certain condition that falls according to Sharia, right?
Yes, obviously. There are some certain specific conditions for leasing. So if these conditions are fulfilled, then it's okay. But in conventional leasing, these conditions are not met. So that's why it is not allowed.
Correct. Jazakumullah khair, and I think that makes a lot of sense, and that's how beautiful our deen and our religion is, and how it, subhanallah, beautifully it can accommodate the needs of the people. Hazrat Mufti Sahab, we have another question from our scholars. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect, because of the situation with COVID and how situation has risen, and many people have lost their loved ones. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all the people who passed away in Iman al-Firdaus al-Ala, give sabr to the family members who have been left behind. The question that is here with me in front of me right now is that, are women allowed to go to the graveyard? Is there any limit on how often? And the question comes, why? As a preface, brothers and sisters, I know that with the COVID situation, a lot of time, family members were not even allowed to be in the hospital, and they were not able to see their parents or their loved ones in the last moments. They were not able to be in places where the ghusl was happening or the janaza was happening. So the only opportunity that they had was to show respect and go to the graveyard and pray for them. So with this, I ask our respected scholars with this question, is that with regards to our mothers and our sisters, would it be permissible or acceptable for a woman to go to a graveyard and visit the graveyard, and how often are they allowed to go, inshallah? Mufti Muasab, your voice, I'm not sure, is not coming. You're not mute, but it still's not coming.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
It's coming now.
It's permissible for women to visit the graveyard on condition that they can maintain their composure and that they adhere to the laws of hijab. As long as these two conditions are found, they can visit the graveyard. There is no limit on how many times they can visit or how often they can visit. As long as these two conditions are found, then they can go, inshallah.
Musab, could you please repeat that again for us, so that
as long as two conditions are met, that number one, they adhere to the laws of hijab, and number two, they maintain their composure. They are able to maintain their emotions and maintain the bounds of Sharia when going and visiting the graveyard. As long as these are found, it's permissible.
Mufti Sahab, would it be okay for them, or is it mandatory for them to have a mahram, a male with them? If it's not a musafir journey, if it's not a traveling worth of journey, would a woman have a male companion? And sometimes some of our sisters don't have those individuals. What would be?
It's not necessary unless the place is not safe. If the place is not safe, then they should go with a mahram. But
Sure.
if it is safe, then they don't need to be accompanied or chaperoned by a mahram.
Jazakumullah khairan. Jazakallah khairan, Musab. And that makes it very easy for many, subhanAllah, individuals and people who can, inshallah, definitely benefit from this. So this was a question that had come in just a little while ago. One of the individual asks a question and says, I have severe acne condition that has caused me to use daily products on my face in the morning, and should be kept on throughout the day as per the advice. However, due to salah, wudu would cause these products to remove from my face. Is it permissible to skip washing of the face? And the question writes, Jazakallah for your time and response. Mufti Saab goes blank. Mufti Abdullah Saab.
The situation that the person's in is definitely a difficult situation, but that situation does not make it permissible for a person to skip washing the face and go straight to tayammum. So they would still need to wash the face. They can reapply it afterwards. That's one way that they can do it. But in the presence of water, and if it's not detrimental to his health, I mean, it's by removing that, it doesn't prolong his health. It doesn't prolong his recovery, and he can just reapply it afterwards. If that's an option, inshallah, then do that.
So if removal of that cream is possible, then it should and then after wudu they should reapply.
They have to, not should. They have
They,
to.
they have to. They have to. And in the case of the usage of the ointment for that individual, if that's the necessity, and if they remove it and then put water, it will prolong the prognosis of them becoming better or healing. Then they would be considered a ma'zur, or someone who is acceptable.
Yes, a Muslim doctor, experienced Muslim doctor would have to tell him that.
Sure.
Not if a person just thinks that, okay, if I remove this ointment, it might take me a longer time to recover. Not if you think so. You have to consult with an experienced Muslim doctor. Then if they tell you that removal of such cream, you have to keep it on 24/7, and removing it in any way, shape, or form is gonna prolong your recovery, then yes, there might be some leeway over there. But even then, you have to speak to a Muslim doctor. He gives you an answer, then you call it, and then afterwards, inshallah, the scholar can give you a reply.
Sure. So would that be very similar to, for example, someone has a cut, right? And they're wearing a Band-Aid, and they're covering it. And if they remove it or put water on it, it's going to cause extreme pain or prolong the healing process. Again, I know, Mufti, you mentioned that someone who is mahir and expert as a physician, or someone who has to really look at it and give them the opinion that putting the water will really, delay the process of healing. Would that be a similar situation for a person, or any uzr, like for example, any part that has to be washed in a wudu area if it's covered, right?
Yeah, I mean, if someone gets a big cut on their arm and they can't wash that, and they have some ointment on there, they obviously can't wash it during wudu, then yes, obviously washing it would cause him to prolong the recovery. Then yes, they can just either make masa over it, or if they have a cast on it, they make masa over the cast. There's different scenarios and different replies for different scenarios. But yes, there are some situations in which you can leave one part of the area which you have to wash in wudu, and do the rest of the wudu. And sometimes, some situations, you can leave the entire wudu in the presence of water, and you can make tayammum. But the specific situation that the person is going through, you mentioned, and he would have to consult a doctor for that first, a Muslim doctor. And after consulting a Muslim doctor, he speaks to a scholar, his local scholar.
MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair. Alhamdulillah. That sets a really good precedence for many of the individuals to make sure that they follow these particular steps to, inshallah, find guidance. May Allah reward you and sub. The next question is it says, Assalamu alaikum. Is it true you can only stick by the rules of your chosen madhab? You cannot pick and choose rules from different madhabs to suit your opinion. If so, why? And then the questioner asks, which madhab do you follow? So that's a tough one, huh? I know that these are the questions that we hear a lot, and subhanAllah comes in a lot. And I'm going to ask the experts to answer this question. But one thing that I will always say is that, brothers and sisters, Ahle Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with the ways of these imams that Allah has given us, such as Imam al-Azam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, Imam al-Shafi, Imam Malik, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullah alayhi, and these great shuyukh, as individuals, we must have respect and honor and dignity for all of them. And a lot of time what we see is, alhamdulillah, not here a lot, but in a lot of places we find that it's like a rivalry, right? It's like, how can I give a kufr fatwa or somehow take someone out of the fold of Islam? I know when I came back as a new graduate from my studies, and we learned fiqh so much, and we are pumped up with the books that we read, and I was like, watch someone put their feet next to me or tell me how to pray, I'm going to start a big fight with them and let them know how it's done. And that's how it was. But subhanAllah, over time you realize that, when a lot of people start debating on the topics, and I always tell them that, there are so many people who are not even praying. Let's bring those people inside rather than making the people inside run outside, but you have a very important question, and I think it's related to madahib. Does any of the scholars want to briefly touch upon it? I think it's a topic to itself, and I think a small answer will not justify it. Of course, there is a need, and this is important. Any of the scholars would like to just briefly touch upon this? Is it true you can only stick by the rules of your chosen madhab? You cannot pick and choose different rules from this madhab to suit your opinion?
For the most part, yes, that's correct. You cannot pick and choose because in one specific issue, there's times where every madhab has a different stance. You would obviously, you would not, every human being, they're obviously going to pick the madhab which not suit them better, which is the easiest. And it's very, very apparent. And then you're going to pick one madhab where you think it's easy. And then for a different issue, you're going to pick another madhab where you think that's easy, where you can't do that because they have specific set of rules. And either you go fully and you go fully within that madhab and you follow all of their rules, or you stick with your own madhab. So you can't pick and choose. A lot of what happens is I'm trying to make it as easy as possible, trying to make it logical sense for those who are listening. Every madhab has their specific set of rules. You following a certain madhab means you're following those certain set of rules, whether you know it or not. To leave certain set of rules, you have scholars can do that at times when they have when they have a lot of things in front of them, when they do a lot of research. They can say, okay, in this specific issue, we're not going to stick with our madhab because this madhab is very impossible to follow. So the scholars then give the permission that, okay, in this specific issue, you can act upon that different madhab. But a regular person, they don't know all of these things. They don't know those certain set of rules. They don't know all of the ahadith, all the verses that are pertaining to that specific issue. So just to break it all down, very simple answer. No, you cannot pick and choose from different madhab because that would mean that you're following your desires. You're going to pick the easiest from here, then the easiest from there, even though there are two different set of rules and you can't pick and choose like that. I hope I made it as simple as possible. It's not a simple subject. Mufti Saab mentioned this. The subject requires an entire program for itself. But I mean, we try to boil it down as easy as possible, try to give it as easy as possible. You're muted, Mufti Saab. You're muted.
So you are muted.
This is so complicated. I'm muted. Mufti Muasab, do you want to shed some blessings on this?
And secondly,
you're muted too. You're muted too, bro.
I think brother has also asked that which madhab you follow. So we follow Hanfi school of thought. We should clear over here, and our answer to the question.
I think Mufti Sahib, you should say I. You should say I. We have 4 screens.
Okay.
we might have a Shafi or Hanbali or Maliki amongst us.
Oh yes.
So we should say I am Hanafi, right, Mufti Umar Sahib?
Okay. I think.
No. Just say it for yourself. Just say it for yourself.
Okay.
Allah bless you and reward you. Look, this is the beauty of our deen, right? Quran and Sunnah. Allahu Akbar. A lot of time people say hands up or hands down, irsal or rifaya. I said any amal that our beloved Nabi Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep it alive till the day of Qiyamah. Even if he did this amal once, it will remain alive till the day of Qiyamah. Now, if we make it as a personal thing that his namaz or her namaz and their prayer and this prayer is not done, I think we're getting out of the main core of our deen itself, right? And many of these differences with regards to madahib is basically related towards something mean awla, more preferable or not, right? They are very minute things. So I would ask, what do you follow? Mufti Farhan? Oh man. Okay, we're gonna come.
I would like to add a comment that this is not on the issue only with religion Islam. This is the issue with every legal system. Even if we talk about American legal system, you will find a lot of differences of opinion, if you take any issue, and you will find a lot of opinions regarding that, opinions of the jurists of this system. So
Sure.
this is not this is the as you mentioned, that this is the beauty of any legal system.
Right. I think this requires an entire topic. Brother Danny, our Sheikh, has a very beautiful comment, important topic. And I think that needs to be answered in a proper manner. And we might not be able to answer it today, but definitely next time, hopefully we can have only a topic on this to cover the details of it. And he says, follow up to this question is, our Prophet ﷺ did not ask us to follow any madhab. What's the logic behind following a madhab? What if 99 things make sense to you, but one does not? Should we do our due diligence about the one issue ourselves from different schools of thoughts? I don't think choosing a favorable answer is not the right way either, of course. Brother Jawad Ghori writes, people say there was no madhab during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Why do we have to follow it now, right? These are great questions. And I think there's a very beautiful booklet by Imam Mufti Taqi Sahab called The Legal Status of Following a Madhab, an amazing book itself that I would recommend everyone to please read if you get a chance, called The Legal Status of Following a Madhab, which talks about the details of what was the madhab and why it came into existence, and how even at the time of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in and Khairul Qurun, there were specific times of following a particular methodology. But Brother Danny, our Sheikh, your question is valid. Inshallah, we will answer it in a lot more detail in a particular segment to itself, because it's important that we should really have this conversation. But because sometimes you will find a hadith in Sahih Muslim where the Prophet ﷺ said, you eat camel meat, make wudu. But does it mean that camel meat break your wudu or not, right? You find a hadith where Rasulullah ﷺ, touched Aisha radiallahu anha and moved her away to the side, and he made sajda in an authentic hadith. But according to one of the madhabs in the riwayah, they would say that if you touch a woman, your wudu would break, right? How do you justify these things? And can a lay person, an individual who has no expertise in the field of fiqh and jurisprudence, start extracting issues themselves, or do they need the usul or guidelines and stuff like that? So I think it's important. Mufti Abdullah, I think you want to say something?
No, I was going to add on to the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha that you mentioned.
Sure.
In one hadith, it's mentioned that he moved Aisha radiallahu anha to the side. In another hadith, it's mentioned that Aisha radiallahu anha herself, she narrates that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would pray his tahajjud, and I would be lying right there in front of him. And the house was so small, the room was so small, that when he wanted to go into sajda, he would tap me so I can move my legs back. So in one hadith, you have him praying with Aisha radiallahu anha in front. In another hadith, you have the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying that if a woman crosses in front of you, your salah breaks. So you have so many different contradicting hadiths. Apparently, they look contradicting. So for regular people, obviously, it won't make sense. And we're going to, inshallah, speak about it.
I think this is amazing. I think this is an amazing topic, because people have a lot of talab for this, and I think we should talk about why it is. Mufti Muasab, is there any particular book that you would recommend, inshallah, with regard to the madhab? I said the legal status of following a madhab. Is there anything particular you would suggest?
Mufti Taqi's work is very beautiful, and then there's another one by Mufti Ayub Jina, I believe. Who are the blind followers? I believe it's been retitled to something else, but the original name was Who Are the Blind Followers?
Who are the blind followers? Okay, sounds good. Okay.
All of these books that we talk about in this program, is it possible for us to post it on your Facebook, for you to post it on your Facebook page, or put a PDF or something like that? I know there's copyright issues and stuff, but I don't know. Maybe look into that, inshallah.
Sure, we can share the links. Sister Noshia Ahmed asks, is it okay to take the coronavirus vaccine since we're not sure about the ingredients? Does anyone want to take that question? I know we talked about it a couple of weeks ago.
Mufti Sahib, you can probably post the document on your page.
Okay, I will post up the document in details. It was a tahqiq that was done by the scholars of UK, where it actually originated with Pfizer and Moderna. The scholars of UK had gathered all the details with regards to its ingredient and its base, and it's nothing with relationship to anything that contains haram or anything that is not appropriate for a Muslim to partake from. Yes, it is your individual choice of taking the vaccination or not. That's up to you. It's not that Islam will make it mandatory for you that you have to, but it's your own personal choice. A lot of people don't vaccinate themselves, and that's their own personal choice. But with regards to the Pfizer and Moderna, two vaccines that are outside right now, which are being given across the world, the ingredients of that were proven and were chemically tested by Muslim scientists and scholars and rechecked and certified as something which was halal and compliant for a Muslim to partake from. Was that correct, Mufsad?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can remember.
Okay, so we have another question. Brother Sayyid Ali asks a question and he says, Assalamu alaikum. I ask questions about the business that claims they sell halal food but not provide the ingredient name or product name. Here in the US, a lot of businesses sell pizza in which they use cheese. That is what the business says. It is vegetable based and says we sell halal pizza. I asked the name of the cheese, but they did not provide it. I researched over the internet and do not find halal cheese beside the famous brand that are much expensive. And I'm pretty sure that they do, and the question cuts off there. But we get the point, right? I guess we get the point that we don't get the complete information from these individuals. We're not sure. They are saying that they are using vegetable based. Do we take their words for it? Do we not take the words of a person selling a particular aspect? So I think he's talking about going to a pizza store. You ask them about their cheese. They say we're using animal based. We'll make sure. He does his own tahqiq. He's not really sure. It's too expensive for them to use. That's what I'm getting out of that question. So, Mufti Muhassab, you want to take that?
When it comes to things like this, there's one first thing to do is obviously you have to do your own research. Secondly, the store or the restaurant, how reliable are they? That would depend on your trust on them. If they are known, or if you know them personally and you know that these people are reliable, you can take their words and go for it. If you are not sure, if you cannot confirm their reliability, then it's better to stay away from it. When it comes to pizza, in most cases, the cheese that is used is halal. I won't say all cases, but in a lot of cases. For example, Papa John's, their pizza is halal, but you have to make sure that you tell them that they do. You give them a special instruction for clean cut, so they don't use the same knife that they use for the chicken and other pizza. In many cases, that's the case. But if you ask the people which brand it is, then they can perhaps tell you where they get their cheese from or which company they get it from, and you can find out from them. But in the question, I think it mentions they say it's vegetable based.
Right.
If it's vegetable based, then it should be fine.
What's up? The question I think that comes up is that how much trust or how do you gauge that if someone is telling the truth, right? Because I can really rip up the heart of someone. So where do I gauge that level of the sense of acceptance? And I think you answered that in the beginning, right? Of your answer as well, is that you just have to look at the credibility of those individuals, of how conscious that person is about halal and haram. And I think that is where you can really draw a line.
So yes, so I just wanna, sometimes looks can be deceiving also. So
looks can be deceiving. That's very, very true. That's
there's enough examples out here in our area, in New York City.
Oh yes, Long Island too, brother. Long Island too.
Long Island too, man. Long Island too. So I just want to answer that question. I want to add two things. Number one is, if you're ordering pizza from a place that you trust, what I personally, I've been trying to do for the past couple of times I've been ordering pizza. Don't ask me from where.
Food expert, mashallah.
Yo, so I tell them not to cut it at all, because I don't even want them making a mistake with their cutter. Sometimes they can be like, oh, we forgot or whatever, because I've seen it. I've seen at times where I've been there right in front of them and I asked them to do a clean cut, and even then they forgot to wash it and they said, we forgot. I said, I don't want the pie. Make me a new one. So what I just tell them now is don't cut it at all, and I just have my own pizza cutter at home. So that's one thing. The second thing is, Mufti Farhan was mentioning, how do you gauge the credibility of a person? I mean, there's times where I've called up restaurants and I've asked them, where's your meat from? Obviously, you can't trust. I don't trust anyone over here because of no one has credibility. No restaurants over here, for the most part, they don't have credibility. So you have to really ask everyone where they get the meat from, the whole 9 yards. So I asked them where they get the meat from. They said it's Zabiyah Halal. I said, what do you mean by that? They said that it's slaughtered by a Muslim, or the owner of the factory is a Muslim. I was like, what does Zabiha Halal mean itself? They said, we don't know. And I'm speaking to the owner.
Did you ever get Mufti Abdullah certified us, the Imam of Selden Masjid? Like they're right next to it, and then they're like, "Oh, that's me."
Oh no, no.
You know,
They
I
do that
went
by
through this.
hand.
I went through this before, like the whole social media vibe. I wasn't on it. No one knew my face. I'm not going to give the names of the location. I went there. Someone said they're selling halal with a name that Farhan certified it or this and that. I went there. There's a person standing there. I said, "Brother, where do you get your meat from?" He's like, "Brother, don't worry about it. We have a mufti certifying our work." I said, "Who is it?" He said, "Mufti Farhan in that masjid." I said, "MashaAllah, when did he certify it? You have anything written from them?" Like, "Oh no, we don't." But he came in and he certified everything. And I walked outside. I don't want to embarrass the brother, but subhanAllah, that's how a lot of time is. But Mufti Muasab, a question that comes to it is that with a sense of credibility, a lot of restaurants are saying, such as Fatima Hanif says, a lot of restaurants say that they're selling halal meat without specific if it's zabiyah halal or not, right? So how do we gauge the difference between that cheese product, another product, and meat? Because I think there's a different rule and law for meat itself, right? Where it has to be proven to be consumed rather than the other products itself. Do you want to touch upon that?
When it comes to food in general, not just meat, I would say for everything else, use that principle that it's haram until proven halal. You don't want to jeopardize your ibadah. You don't want to jeopardize your worship. So if you can't confirm whether it's halal, if it's credible or not, then don't go for it. And in our time, the word halal is being used very irresponsibly. Everyone claims everything is halal. When you try to find out, it ends up being haram. Sometimes forget the difference of opinion or anything. They just take anything they want and they add the name halal for business purposes.
Restaurant Depot had halal pork, right? A couple
Yeah.
months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently. So yeah, you're right. The word halal is being used very irresponsibly,
What
very loosely.
try to go to those restaurants that are certified. We have, mashallah, credible certifiers now. There's Hafsa, there's HMS. Try to go to restaurants that are certified by them. Encourage your local restaurants also to get certified. If they're halal and they want people to come to them, there's no problem in getting certified. Go to these people and encourage them to get certified by the certifiers.
Jazakallah. I think we're going to take this last question, and then one question I think it might be left till next week for us is filing for bankruptcy. We'll take that next week. A sister asks a question. This is a public question, that's why I ask. She posted and she says, "What did Islam say about the mother paying child support if she doesn't have the custody of her child, even though she is one who took care of them since they were born?" I know there is a legal aspect to this, and then there, of course, is the Islamic aspect of it.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. From an Islamic perspective, the father is responsible until the child becomes mature. Until the child becomes baligh, the father is responsible for the financial aspect of the child. Even if the law says that the mother is responsible or gives some other thing, the father is responsible. He must pay for the child's expenses. If he doesn't, then obviously you can't let the child, you can't harm the child. So the mother should try to the best of her abilities to assist the child. The father will be sinful in that case if he doesn't assist, or if he doesn't pay for the expenses.
Jazakumullah khairan. Brother Sayyid Ali says, Jazakallah, it's better if the business do not have answer to stay away from it. Yes, definitely stay away from that which creates a doubt. Does anyone have an answer quickly for bankruptcy? Should we keep this, or should we have it for next week?
What's the question? Is filing for bankruptcy haram? No, filing for bankruptcy is halal, but if you owe people money, you still have to give that back. Islamically, if you don't give it back, you're sinful, and if you don't give it back within this world, your good deeds will be taken on the day of judgment, and the sins of those people will be given to you. So, owing money to people is a very, very strong in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's very, very severe, and it's very, very serious because it has to do with the rights of other people. So you can file for bankruptcy. That in itself is not haram. But if you owe people money, if you owe individuals, or if you owe someone money, you have to give it back to them, even if the court says you don't have to give it back. Islamically, you still have to give them back their money, whether it's $1, whether it's thousands of dollars. You have to give them back their money. If you don't, you are sinful.
MashaAllah. Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you, Mufti Sahib. Mufti Masab, do you want to say something?
One of the comments says, Brother Sayyid Ali said, the business to not use expensive cheese. There are inexpensive cheeses that are halal. It's not every halal cheese is expensive. So we don't want to put the blame on the restaurant owners all the time.
Yeah.
But there are cheap, inexpensive cheeses that are halal.
True. That's right. One of the sister asked, can you list the name of Zabiya Halal restaurant? Sister, we're